Hey, good morning, everyone. Happy Wednesday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. Let me ask you, please, to subscribe and to like these videos, all right? Pardon me, let's get those subscriptions up. Let's get those viewers up, all right? Be sure to share it, all right? When it shows up on Facebook, please hit the share. People need to hear the message that I'm sharing. All right? All right. So we're looking at Colossians chapter 2, 14 to 17, in which Paul said that Christ had nailed the handwriting of ordinances, which was against us, contrary to us, nailed it to the cross. Well, the standard, the traditional, the long-standing tradition of the Sabbatarian world is that what Paul is saying here is that the ceremonial feast days, all of the animal sacrifices were nailed to the cross. All of the feast days except the Sabbath were discontinued, taken out of the way and removed. I've been sharing with you that is not even close to what Paul actually says in this text. He's talking about forgiveness of sin. As many commentaries of men who know the Greek inside and out, and I don't, okay, they point out Paul is absolutely not talking about the removal of the law. He's not saying that Christ nailed the law, any form of the law, to the cross. It's just not in the text. Let me recommend again that you go to my website, donkpreston.com, bibleprophecy.com, and in the search tab, in the search bar, you type in Colossians 2, 14 to 17, or Dallas Burdett, and you'll find an article there. Please read it carefully. I find it interesting. I've been hearing from some folks lately that are, quote, Sabbatarians, and they've actually come to agree with me on this, to agree with Dr. Burdett. Well, that's a huge admission. I would suggest it's basically fatal to the Sabbatarian paradigm. But anyway, so what I've been pointing out is that Paul's actual language, the Greek of the text, demands that those, quote, ceremonial feast days, unquote, were still fully in force when Paul wrote, because that's what he says. They are, present active indicative, shadows of the good things that are about to come. Now, let me remind you that this is not the only place in which the biblical writers speak of those ceremonial practices as still unfulfilled shadows of the things that were about to come. In Hebrews chapter 9, and this is where we'll spend our time this morning. You know, yesterday we talked about the fact that from Pentecost onward, the judgment, Rosh Hashanah, was being anticipated, and it was said to be imminent in its fulfillment. It was at hand. It was coming soon, coming shortly, in spite of all the argumentum ad desperatum attempts to negate the time statements. You know, I have asked people a lot, those who want to say, well, you know, time doesn't mean anything to God. At hand, soon, quickly, shortly, etc., really doesn't mean anything to God. It does to us, but it doesn't to God. Well, if it means something to us, then why did God use the terminology when talking to us? That is to say, talking to mankind. If God knew, obviously he did, that time doesn't mean anything to him, but it means everything in the world to mankind, then why did he never say, and 2 Peter 3:8, he does not say it, why did he never say, now I'm going to use words that you think mean something, but guess what? It doesn't mean that. It's a riddle, it's a puzzle, it's a Gordian knot. Why did he never say that? Anyway, so from Pentecost onward, the day of judgment was approaching. And by the way, the closer you come to AD 70, the more urgent, the more imminent the more pressing those time statements become. After all, let the righteous remain righteous, let the wicked remain wicked. For, behold, I come quickly, and my reward is with me. Now, I want to say this again. If you do not believe that the judgment, which would occur at the second coming of Christ, if you do not believe that that day has come, then you ought to be preaching the message, let the wicked remain wicked. And when I pointed this out in debate after debate and discussion after discussion, about the only response I've gotten is the deer in the headlight look, or, well, that's just utterly ridiculous. Well, why is it ridiculous? It's on the page of Revelation chapter 22, 11 and 12. That was the message. The judgment was so imminent, so pressing, so urgent. Listen, Doug Wilson points this out in his commentary on Revelation entitled Man, When the Man Comes Around. He recognizes the imminency and the urgency of the language, as do other commentators as well. Okay, so Rosh Hashanah, Yom Teruah, the Day of Judgment, the Feast of Trumpets, foreshadow the time of the judgment about to come, and the New Testament writers after 62 AD impress on us the urgency of that day of judgment. They never say it was far off. Okay. The second of the final three feast days was Yom Kippur, the Day of Atonement. It happened 10 days after Rosh Hashanah. Okay? Is that right? 10 days after? Or is it 7 days after? Lose track. I apologize for that. So what happened on the Day of Atonement? The high priest has made himself ready. He takes the sacrifice. You have 2 goats as the sacrifice. You have Azazel, the goat for the Lord, the sacrifice to the Lord, and the other sacrifice. He placed his hands on Azazel and conferred Israel's sins onto that goat. Then 2 men took that goat out into the wilderness, thus carrying Israel's sin away, metaphorically, figuratively, symbolically. There was an extremely high bluff, and they would cast that goat off. And all of that signified, again representatively, symbolically, the taking away of Israel's sin. Then the priest would take the blood of the goat, the blood of the Day of Atonement, and he would enter into the most holy place. There, when the Ark of the Covenant was still there, he would take the blood and he would sprinkle it on all 4 corners of the Ark of the Covenant. He would purge the most holy place by doing that. And then he would come out and announce salvation to the awaiting multitudes. Now, one of the most common misunderstandings of so many Bible students, and I get accosted on this, I get challenged on this, I get ridiculed, castigated, and condemned on this. When I say the atonement was not finished or consummated at the moment of the cross or the moment of the death of Jesus. That's blasphemy, I'm told. No, it's not blasphemy. It's the truth. The Day of Atonement was a 3-step process. By the way, I have asked my friend in Israel, who is reputed to be one of the top Hebrew scholars in all the world, if it could be argued in any way whatsoever that the atonement was completed at the moment that the high priest offered the sacrifice, killed it. Or was it completed when he took the blood into the most holy place? Or was it not considered to be finished, completed, until the high priest came out of the most holy place, there to announce the salvation. And he literally scoffed at the idea that the atonement was completed at the time of the killing of the sacrifice. He said that, his word, he said that's ridiculous. By the way, you can go on the internet to www.askarabbi.com and ask the question, was the atonement consummated, finished, and over at the offering of the sacrifice? You may be rather put off by the bluntness of the response, because I've done it, and they will tell you it is simply wrong to say the atonement was finished at the offering of the sacrifice. Now, is all typology, and I want to emphasize this question for fairness, is every single constituent element of every typological action necessary to be fulfilled antitypically? And my response to that is no. Hebrews chapter 5, every high priest is chosen from among men, and he must offer sacrifice first for his own sins, then for the sins of the people. Pardon me, came out of nowhere. But Jesus, because he had no sin whatsoever, did not have to offer sacrifice for his own sin. He only had to offer sacrifice, i.e. himself, for the sins of the people. So is it theoretically possible that the writer of Hebrews held to a view that said, okay, here's the Day of Atonement, kill the sacrifice, go into the most holy place, offer the life, and come back out. But he did not apply that to the atoning work of Christ. That what he really intended to communicate was that Christ had offered himself as the sacrifice, and that it was it, that it was over. Well, there's a problem with that view. Because the writer of Hebrews says that Christ has appeared once at the end of the ages, the consummation, the goal of the ages, if you please, to put away sin by the sacrifice of himself. And people jump up and they say, see, to put away sin by his sacrifice. That's right. It is the means, the power by which it would be done. It is not the point at which it would be done. Now watch this. Not only does he say that Christ had appeared to offer himself as a sacrifice, he says he has ascended into heaven itself, there to prepare it. Well, wait a minute. Now the writer of Hebrews is saying not only did Jesus fulfill the typological meaning of the high priest killing the sacrifice, now he is also applying Christ's entrance into the most holy place as the antitypical fulfillment of the high priest who went into the most holy place. He doesn't short circuit the Day of Atonement by saying, done deal at the cross. Nope. Doesn't do that. Oh, but wait. What else did the high priest have to do to bring the salvation, as accommodative as it was, as anticipatory as it was? What did he have to do? Well, in Leviticus chapter 9, and I'm going to read this from the New American Standard. Like I said, this is the one just happened to be laying on my desk. In Leviticus 9, 22 and 23, Aaron is offering a sacrifice. And he says, Aaron lifted up his hands toward the people and blessed them, and he stepped down after making the sin offering and the burnt offerings and the peace offerings. And Moses and Aaron, this is incredible, Moses is going with him. Moses and Aaron went into the tent of meeting. The tent of meeting is where you have the holy place and the most holy place. So they both go in. When they came out and blessed the people, the glory of God appeared to all the people. So here's the question. When the sacrifices were offered, even in the holy place, when were the people blessed? Was it at the killing of the sacrifice of verse 22? Nope. It's when they went into the holy place, and then Aaron on the Day of Atonement, the most holy place. And there he offered that sacrifice. And it was only when he came out that the atonement was considered completed. Listen, folks, Jesus did not ascend into the most holy place while he was on the cross. Isn't that self-evident? So we have a threefold aspect, threefold action of the Day of Atonement. Slaying of the sacrifice, entrance into the most holy place, coming out. Now, the writer of Hebrews says, and to those who eagerly look for him. Look for him to do what? Come out of the most holy place. He shall appear again the second time, apart from sin, for salvation. Now watch chapter 10, verse 1. For the law, having a shadow of the good things about to come. Guess what? Having is present active. The law having a shadow of the good things about to come. Same identical construction as in Colossians chapter 2. But what's he talking about? Christ completing the atonement process. He had already offered himself as sacrifice. He had already entered into the most holy place. But now, to those who were eagerly awaiting him, he was about to come out of the most holy place, because those things under the law were shadows of the good things that were about to come. And when would he come? Oh, Hebrews 10:37. And now, in a very, very little while, the one who is coming will come, and he will not delay. And I'm sorry, if you say he's delayed by 2,000 years, you are in overt contradiction of Scripture. So, from Pentecost onward, you had the beginning of the atonement process at the cross. You have the ascension into the most holy place in Acts chapter 1. And you have the promise of the imminent coming very, very soon out of the most holy place to bring salvation and to judge. And that means, folks, the ceremonial feast days were not nailed to the cross. They had to be fulfilled before they could pass. I will have more on that on Monday. In the meantime, be sure to join me on Friday for more on the Future of Rome book review on Friday, as well as Mike Sullivan and I continue our, boy, what a fantastic, wonderful study it is, of the Song of Moses as the template, the foundation, and the fountain for all New Testament eschatology. You just don't want to miss this stuff. All right? Thanks for joining me. I'll see you there.